This guy, he had absolutely no money, and he hired a coach for $1,500 a month, and everybody told him he was crazy. He doesn't have any money. And he goes, yeah, but this coach is going to teach me how to make money. And sure enough, he grew his company from that point to $20 million and sold it.
Hello, and welcome to the Millennial Mastermind Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Mulvey. If you're a millennial looking for actionable advice and a proven formula on how to build the life of your dreams, then this is the show for you. Each week, I'll be connecting with inspiring guests who will be sharing their wisdom on how to reach success. So if you're ready to take your life to the next level, buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to the Millennial Mastermind Podcast. For any of you who have listened to this show for a while, all the way back to episode number 11 to be specific, you may remember hearing an interview with Dr. Travis Zigler. For those of you who didn't listen to that one, a quick background. He and his wife are both optometrists, and they founded a company called I Love the Sun. It's a really cool eyewear company that they started, and that was a phenomenal episode. But in that time, which was just 15 months ago, he's managed to 4x that business, go from 0 employees to 13 employees, realize he made some hiring mistakes along the way and let go of 7 of those employees, and start another business on the side. So in this episode, we dive into how he managed to do all this, why he shrunk his team by over half, and also the massive impact that mastermind groups have had on him and his wife's lives. Wives' lives. There you go. That's a good tongue twister. But towards the end of this episode, he caught me a little bit off guard, and he asked me a question about my business, which actually ended up turning into a totally awesome mini coaching session where Travis was giving me phenomenal advice. So I get pretty transparent during that part, and you guys can get truly an inside look into the challenges that I'm facing and some of Travis's expert advice on how to tackle some of that. He also gives us a code to get 10% off of any of the products on I Love the Sun, so make sure you check out the show notes to get that, or stay tuned till that part of the episode. So without getting too far ahead of myself, let's dive into this episode with Dr. Travis Zigler. Joined today by an old friend, Dr. Travis Zigler, who was a guest way back in the early days of the show on episode 11. And Travis, I actually went back and listened to that episode the other day, and it's somewhat embarrassing to listen to it, but also encouraging to know that there have been a lot of improvements on the show. But Travis, welcome back to the show. We're thrilled to have you.
I'm pretty happy to be here again, Brad, and thanks for reconnecting. I'm glad we got reconnected again. And I actually listened to that episode as well and realized that was a long time ago. It was only, 15, 16 months ago, but a lot has changed in my life and a lot has changed in your life as well.
Indeed. I think when I listened to it and I had, I listened to the intro and I was like, something's off here. And I'm 99% sure that when I recorded that, I accidentally recorded into my computer microphone instead of my actual studio quality podcasting microphone. So it's like, yeah, you learn some things as you go along, but I probably didn't even notice that at the time.
Well, the best thing about that is you just did it. And a lot of people will try to get everything perfect before they jump into anything. And you just jumped in and did it, and you made a mistake, but small one. Nobody ever notices those things, and you just kept going.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great point, and something I've been thinking about. I was at a mastermind event last week, and that was a big takeaway for me, is that there were these 40 very successful entrepreneurs in the room, and when they started, none of them were actually ready to start. And so that's something that I've been trying to be more cognizant of moving forward. How do I start when I'm not even ready, but just get the ball rolling? And so it sounds like you've been doing that on a number of fronts. So I want to jump in and catch up with you and see what's changed in your life. I think a good place to start is I Love the Sun, because that's something that we talked about last year, and it sounded like things were going really well, but wanted to see where you guys stand with that and kind of what some of the things you've learned over the year and what your takeaways are with that one.
So the business I love has really gone beyond anything that we ever expected it to. And back in April of 2016, when we talked last, it was just my wife and I. It was literally just my wife and I working in that business, doing everything. And we made our first hire the next month, and we hired 2 Filipino VAs, and they took over customer service, social media. They're both still with us today, but we've expanded to we 4x'd our business since then, and we've expanded to 13 employees, and then we reduced down to 6 employees, and now we're scaling back up. And I can go into why we expanded so quickly and then why we reduced so quickly, and then what's kind of happened in between there. But that business has been a very big learning curve, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and just roll with it. So what was the business reasoning behind expanding so quickly to 13 employees and then scaling it back to less than half of that in a relatively short amount of time?
So what we did is we learned pretty quickly that we couldn't do everything, hence why we started hiring. And we were still practicing in 2 optometry practices because we're both eye doctors, my wife and I. And we just couldn't do it all. So we started hiring pretty quickly, and we hired agencies and outside firms to do different things for us. And that's how we got up to 13 pretty quickly. But then what happened was we started looking, we do our income statements every month, and we started looking at these, and we just noticed that cash flow wasn't there. And we do cash flow statements as well. And our cash flow just was negative every month, even though we were profiting. And we couldn't figure out what was going on, and we just decided that we needed to look at every single person and every single firm that we hired to help us out and see if it's necessary and see if we could do it a better way. And we just reduced very quickly. We made a lot of mistakes along the way, lost a lot of money, and we kind of fired everybody. And we did this because we actually sold one of our practices in June of this year. And so we freed up a lot more of our time, and then we reduced the amount of clinic days in our current clinic to I'm a day and a half a week, and my wife's 2 days a week. So we had a lot more time to focus on this. And the reason we expanded so quickly is because we had hopes of other people figuring out what to do in our business without our instruction. And so I think that's why we went into the firm and agency route, and it didn't really work because they still... And I'm not saying it's all their fault, and I'm not saying it's all our fault. It's kind of a mix of both. We didn't have the systems in place to be able to expand that quickly. And I think that goes back to, or that's like key lesson number 1. If your listeners can take anything away from today, it's make sure your systems are in place before you try to expand quickly, because now we're dialed back. We have 6 employees now, and our goal right now is we're creating systems, and we're simply recording the screen when we're doing something and then putting it in a list of things to do. And then as we create these systems, we can then put out a hiring role or an application process of this is what we're looking for somebody to do for us, and this is what you'll be doing day-to-day basis. Here's the playbook or standard operating procedures, and we're going to kind of go from there and just expand that way. And so it's been a learning curve, but it's been an expensive learning curve.
Well, it's really interesting hearing you talk through that, because one of the common pieces of advice that you hear surrounding starting a business and entrepreneurship is build your team. Find those people that you can start letting them work in the business so you can work on the business. But it sounds like without having some of those systems in place and really understanding who you need to be on that team and what roles you need them to play, that you could get yourself into a little bit of trouble. So there's got to be some methodology behind it, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Exactly. And you got to hire the right person for the right role.
So when you're thinking about hiring and you're looking for that right person for the right role, where do you start? Because this is something that I've not had to do yet, but I'm certain that it will be coming before I know it. So where do you even go to look for this? Is it first just developing exactly what that role looks like, and then letting that person come to you, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, so defining your role is, I think, the biggest thing, and just describing exactly what you want from a person as far as their personality, and then what they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. Defining that is step one. Don't put anything out to the world until you define that, and then making that into a system, making hiring into a system. What we did is we put it out on two different areas. We knew what we were looking for, and like this, we just hired somebody on last Monday, and so what we did is we were hiring a customer service rep, and we wanted to bring it back into the United States. And so the first thing I did was I created this awesome, pretty much description of what we wanted. We posted that on our Facebook. Jenna shared it on her Facebook, and that's how we put it out to the world, because you want to look within your network first. And then after we look within our network, see if we get any good leads, we'll then kind of poach on LinkedIn. And what you do is just search for what you're looking for on LinkedIn, and then just message them and see if they're interested in the job, and kind of put the same description that you put on Facebook in their LinkedIn message. And then if they apply, they apply, and you'll get a lot of rejections too. People will just be like, no, I'm happy where I'm at, and that's okay too. And then finally, what we also posted was hiremymom.com, and we were looking for a great customer service rep that could work from home. And what better than a mom? I mean, they're pretty much being a customer service rep every day. If they're a stay-at-home mom, they're having to take care of their kids. So this job offers the flexibility of being able to stay at home with your kids, and they'll love that. And then it also gives them the opportunity to grow in a startup company and become bigger in the future. And so we kind of did it to our network first, LinkedIn second, and then hiremymom.com was third. And the latest hire we had was actually a friend of a friend, and she applied, and we ended up loving her.
No, that's really helpful to hear you walk through that process and kind of your pecking order of where you go to find those quality employees. So I know you mentioned that over the past year there's been a lot of learnings, challenges, things that may have came at an expensive price tag, but hopefully will serve you long term with the takeaways that you came away. What has been the biggest learning that you've walked away with from some of the challenges that you guys have overcome?
I think it goes back to what we just talked about a little bit, was throwing your employees to do something without having a system in place. That was kind of learning lesson number one back in March. And I let one of my employees create a coupon code, and I thought he knew what he was doing. And unfortunately, the coupon code on Amazon, somebody figured out how to stack it. And what happened was they got 3 pairs of our sunglasses for $3, and we usually charge about $40 to $50 per pair. And so this stacking ended up, we left in the morning, it was a Saturday morning, went and ran a half marathon and came back to $120,000 in sales. And we knew something was wrong. And so we found the coupon code on a website, and we ended up going through about $100,000 in a day, and it was lost. And so learning lesson number one was probably just make sure there's a system in place and a checks and balances in place before you send your employees off to do something, and make sure they understand it completely before they go do that. And so that employee stayed with us. I mean, it wasn't his fault. It was kind of a combination of all of our faults, that we didn't have the systems in place, and we thought he was educated enough. But unfortunately, it was our fault for not educating him thoroughly. And then he did what we told him to, and unfortunately that happened. So that was kind of lesson number one. And lesson number two is hiring good professionals. And I say that because we've had a lot of challenges from a law standpoint. And if we would have gone the cheap lawyer route and just gone for somebody that was just, inexpensive, I think we'd be in a lot of trouble. But we decided to go hire the best that's out there. And we found good attorneys, and they're expensive, and they put us in a good spot. And hopefully the lawsuits that we're in right now will win them. And that's just kind of a start of it. And then also hiring good accountants and CPAs and getting second opinions on all this stuff. So we're in a trademark lawsuit right now over our name, and we hired an attorney to do it. And we hired a second attorney halfway through it to look over what the first attorney was doing to make sure that they agreed with it. So what the second attorney did was they looked over all the information and didn't assess didn't look at the assessment that the first attorney did, and she wrote out her own assessment. And then after she wrote us that, she then went and looked back at what the first attorney did, and they agreed pretty much to a T. And so that made us feel good about moving forward. And then I have my tax returns every 3 years. We have them looked at from a second CPA. And we actually just had this meeting yesterday, and we found out that if we would have followed the second CPA's advice, who does more business planning and higher level businesses, we could have probably saved close to $48,000 over the last 3 years. And so hiring a good team right away, as far as professionals, would be another lesson that I've learned this last year. And then just making sure you have the checks and balances in place, like I said earlier. We had a big inventory order stuck in the FDA. It's still there. And we luckily had some cash reserves to make us through the summer. But that was our summer inventory. We were planning on doing $500,000 in one day, and we ended up doing 11,000 that day. And so it hurt big time, and we still have that inventory stuck. But in the meantime, you have to reorder the inventory to keep in stock. So those three combination of things kind of hurt our businesses from a cash flow standpoint, but we're still alive and kicking, and that's what matters most.
Yeah, 100%. And so I think any one of those things could have easily caught a business off guard and been the end of that business for a lot of folks. So what do you think was your reason for being able to push through those experiences and those challenges? Was it a mindset thing, or was it just a preparation thing, having those cash reserves? What do you think were the biggest contributing factors to you guys still being here today and us having this conversation?
It's finding your why. And this may not be what your audience wants to hear, but it's not a tactic, it's not a strategy, it's just finding your why. And our why is we want to end preventable blindness. And for your listeners, there's about 700 million people that are blind due to lack of glasses, just a lack of glasses. And so we're hoping to end that by the time we're gone, and hopefully our legacy will live on and our business will continue to help that. And we do that by donating a portion of our profits to a charity that we started. And then that charity helps build these clinics and build glasses. So whenever you have that why in your mind, you can get through anything. Most people, if they hit one of these hurdles, they would have given up and folded, but we know the end goal, and this is small stuff when it comes down to the end goal. And the end goal is putting that pair of glasses on that 10-year-old girl that's never seen before. She puts them on and she just lights up. And that's the end goal. And if you have a strong why, you'll get through those business challenges. And if you don't, then you're going to fold right away and you're just going to give up. And so not a tactic, not a strategy, just finding your why.
No, that's great to know, and I associate that too with having your purpose. I think those are probably go hand in hand, and I think a great resource. And feel free to mention any other ones that you might have in mind. But Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, is very well aligned with what you're talking about, and can help people kind of walk through that process of how you look at that and how you start to figure out what your why is. If you're listening to Travis talk through this and have no idea what your why is, that's a great place to start.
And I think that's also a YouTube video too. So, and I think it's a TED Talk. So if you don't want to read it, you can watch it or you can listen to it.
Perfect. So one other thing that I know that you're very much involved in and a believer in is mastermind groups. And I bring this up just because it is in our title. It is part of the show. But I love to get feedback from people who have leveraged these groups and really use them to grow their businesses and to grow their success and themselves personally and professionally. So I'd love to see kind of what your takeaways, first of all, kind of what type of mastermind groups you may be involved in, and then what your reason is for being a part of those.
So that's the cool thing, is there's masterminds out there for anything. And we didn't start our first mastermind group until we talked to you last. Like in April of last year, we joined our first mastermind. And the first one we joined was a business mastermind. And we joined Ryan Daniel Moran's The Back Room. And it's about a $25,000 a year mastermind. And actually, I think it's going up in the end in December. And the reason we pay for that is because we go to 4 events a year. And if you in the relationships you establish at those events, and just talking to these people over and over again, there are we actually started a business out of that mastermind, and there's 4 of us that started a business together. We don't know what we're doing yet with it, but we started a Facebook page, and we're just providing content for people for free. It's called Business Igniters. The last 7 days, I actually did we're doing a 10,000 leads, and hopefully by the end of the year, but I'm going to try to do it in a month. And I just pretty much documented video documentation of me going through my processes and stages to get that, to get those 10,000 leads. And I don't know if it's going to work because I don't know what I'm doing really, but
I love that.
Well, that business was formed because of this mastermind that we joined, and we're still in that mastermind, and we're still with Ryan, and he's got some pretty ambitious goals for the businesses that are in that mastermind. We're all trying to build our business to 10 million in 2 years. And then if you're interested in it, you can sell it as a big package. So we'll find an investment firm that will buy all 10 businesses for a 2.5x multiple. And then we all take that money, and his goal is to buy the Cleveland Indians. So I think it's kind of his whole tie up to get up to that. And so the second mastermind we joined is a wealth, it's called Wealth Factory, and it's a wealth architecture mastermind. It's pretty much how to pretty much manage your finances to create wealth. And they focus not on that net worth number, they focus on cash flow. And so they work on increasing your cash flow as much as possible to become financially independent. And that's what they focus on. So we have our business mastermind, we have our wealth mastermind, and then we also hired a coach as a third mastermind. And these are all about the same price. And the coach mastermind he's also a business growth consultant, but what attracted us to him so much was him and her is that they've had a successful marriage with 4 kids, all while running multiple businesses. And so I saw us in them, or them in us, however you want to say that. And the success they've had in their marriage and the success they've had in business instantly drew us to them. And so every time we talk to them, it's just great to see how they interact. And so I consider that a business one as well, but it's also a marriage one. And so we have this kind of business marriage mastermind, we have our wealth mastermind, and then we have our strictly business growth mastermind.
That's awesome. And I'm sure a lot of people are listening to this and doing the math in their head, and they're like, oh my God, he's got $75K a year in mastermind groups. So what type of returns have you seen on that? That's the big thing people always think about is ROI and what's in it for me. But I would love to hear kind of what your experience has been in terms of what you've gotten out of these groups, and what results you've seen because of them.
And I think it goes back, actually, I'll tie this into hiring an employee as well. Whenever you hire an employee, they should be able to pay their yearly salary in the first 3 months. And so I treat masterminds the same way. So whenever we join a mastermind, it's not something we do just instantly. It's something we will follow the person for probably about 6 months to a year, or even 2 years in some cases. And then after kind of interacting with them and going to a live event with them, we'll consider joining it, and we'll look at the expenses of it, and we'll figure out if we can return our money. So each one's $25,000, and if we can return our money within the first 3 months of being in that group, then that $25,000 is paid for itself. And I just listened to a podcast this morning about this guy. He had absolutely no money, and he hired a coach for $1,500 a month, and everybody told him he was crazy. He doesn't have any money. And he goes, yeah, but this coach is going to teach me how to make money. And sure enough, he grew his company from that point to $20 million and sold it. And so you got to look at it as an investment, not an expense. And if it doesn't pay for the full year within 3 months, then drop it. And I'll give you an example of the first mastermind we joined, which was the back room. We joined it, and the first event we went to completely changed the trajectory of our business. And we were a sunglass company, and we went to the first meeting of that group, and everybody was talking about how, like, we have a brick and mortar store, so we're selling other people's products. So why don't we sell our own products? And so I went back to my office after that weekend, and I looked at the shelf of what we sold. We sold supplements, we sold sprays, we sold drops, we sold a bunch of things. And I thought to myself, why isn't every product on that shelf ours? And so we were a sunglass company, and now we're morphing into an eye wellness company where we're selling sprays for dry eye and blepharitis. We're selling supplements for dry eye. We're selling supplements for eye diseases like macular degeneration. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't put myself in position to be part of that mastermind and go to that event and just learn that one nugget of valuable information. And that's all I try to get out of every event I go to, is just that one valuable nugget. And if you get that one piece of value and it costs you $2,000 to get to the event, costs you $2,500 that month for that mastermind, if it didn't save you $5,000, that one little piece of value that you got, then drop it. But if it did, stick with it.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really crucial point. You said it a few times there that if it doesn't pay for your full year in 3 months, then drop it. Or if you're not getting the value from it, drop it. And that, I think, is a key component that you have to be willing to pull the plug on it if you're not seeing that return and that value, because at that point it's a sunk cost. So it's something that you have to look at as an investment and be willing to let go of it if it's not giving you the return.
Exactly.
So last thing I want to talk through is just how you were able to grow traffic to your website, because I know that this is something that you guys have had a focus on in the past year as well. And I believe the number, correct me if I'm wrong, was going from 0 visitors to your website to close to 600 visitors per day. And you've done that, it sounds like, without on a completely organic path. So I'd love to get your feedback on that piece.
Yeah, so most of the paid traffic we do to our website is retargeting. And so if somebody hits a certain page on our website, we're going to retarget them with other products that pretty much go along with that page. But we focused on content. And actually, this goes back to that same mastermind group that we were at in August when we started doing supplements. And we were at that mastermind. This is a year ago, August. And at that same mastermind, somebody told us, RV Share, his name's Mark Jenny, he told us that every content piece he comes out with will pay off in 2 years, because he's just trying to get content out there. And so we started focusing on content, and you don't have to do it all yourself. And what we did is we hired some ghostwriters to write content for us. And it sounds crazy that we were really skeptical, because we're both doctors and they're going to write content about being doctors. And they actually did a great job. And so we hired them to write like 200 articles on dry eye. And they wrote them, we edited them, and then we put them up on our website. And so Google will start to see that you're consistently writing on dry eye, and you'll start to rank for the keywords for dry eye. And we've actually run out of written articles, and we've switched to videos. And so we do Facebook Live videos every Sunday at 6 p.m. on our dry eye syndrome support community, which has about 2,500 members, and it's growing by 100 each week. And it's only because of content. And we do a Facebook Live video. We take that Facebook Live video, and then we answer questions from the community about dry eye. And then we break it down into a bunch of individual YouTube videos. And then those individual YouTube videos get embedded on our website. And then we have our Filipino VAs. They transcribe the videos for us. And so they literally listen to the videos and type it up into a paragraph form and into a timestamp form. And then we post that under the video. And we have another operations manager here in the States that pretty much SEOs everything. She SEOs the video, she SEOs the blog site, the blog page, and she posts the blog for us. So don't be afraid to hire help and focus on what you're good at, which is creating the content. And so you could do the same thing with this podcast, as you could create a Facebook Live video, or you could even interview me live on Facebook, or do it on YouTube Live. Mm-hmm. And then you could then take that video, turn it into a podcast, rip the audio file out, and then you could take that and transcribe it, have somebody else transcribe it for you, and then post it on your blog. And so there's so much you can do with just one piece of video. I will say I still do a little bit of it. I still do a little bit of the video editing, but my goal is to eventually I take the video and then my team runs with it.
I love that. And being able to repurpose that content in the number of ways that you are is just incredible. So it's got the wheels turning in my head a bit of things that I can do moving forward. So I appreciate that advice. So final question here, Dr. Zigler. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice to the Travis from 1 year ago or 16 months ago, whenever it was that we did our last interview, What have you learned in that time that you would like? What piece of advice would you like to give to yourself at that point?
Yeah, it's what we went back to earlier. It's the systems thing. I am terrible at systems, and figure out your systems first before you start hiring, and hire for that system. Don't try to do the reverse like we did. We hired a person and expected them to do a role, whereas now we're figuring out the system and then hiring the person for that. And actually what I did after all these mishaps happened is I fired myself from the company, from the logistics side. And so I was doing inventory ordering, I was doing all that, and I fired myself from that because I was terrible at it, obviously, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I focus on what I'm good at, which is content creation, doing podcasts like yours, and then marketing. And so focus on your value that you bring to the business and hire everything else out, but make sure there's a system in place for exactly how you want to do it first.
I think that we've really taken a lot out of that, the systems and building the systems, because I think that it's something that people hear, but they don't really fully implement and they don't really fully go after. So I appreciate you bringing that up once again. So if people want to find out more about you, more about I Love the Sun, more about Business Igniters, where can they find some of these links? And we'll make sure to throw these all in the show notes as well.
And thanks for letting me do that. And I'm going to have a question for you after I say this too. So
I love it.
On Facebook, you can follow me at Business Igniters. That's the group of 4 of us. You can just search Business Igniters, or right now we have businessigniters.com, and it will actually redirect to that page on Facebook. On Facebook, I also have Dr. Travis Zigler. You can follow me there. I have a public profile, or you can add me as a friend. I don't mind. And then I did the same link pretty much, but I made it a little cleaner since the last episode, and I have a $10 off coupon for any of your listeners that are interested in any of our products, and it's at ilovethesun.com/MM, as in Millennial Mastermind. And so the question I have for you is, what is your current business challenge?
So for me, that's a great question. I think my number one focus right now is so a little background for you and for the listeners who may not know. I have started a mastermind group called just the Millennial Mastermind Group, and we have a number of people involved right now, and it's going phenomenally well. But I struggle to understand how to take that to the next level, how to really scale that and make it into something that gives me the freedom that I want and the ability to step away from my 9-to-5. So understanding how to make that profitable enough to really become an avenue for revenue that can support my lifestyle.
Can I ask some questions about that?
Yes, absolutely.
How much are you charging for it?
So the introductory group, which was the first one, was $30 a month.
Okay.
So much less expensive than the ones you're involved in.
And then you have about 10 to 20 people in it?
Right now it's a group of 5.
That's awesome though. That's a good start. And then where do you guys share content?
So we do that. We have a library. We don't share it with anybody outside of the group, but we have a Google Doc library of any of the tools or information that we share within the call.
So I'll just give you my 2 cents of what I would do.
Please.
And see if it helps you out. So I would move it to a secret Facebook group on Facebook itself, obviously, because it's a Facebook group. But I would move it to a secret group where only people that can find it is people that you invite. And so invite the 5 of them and just build a content library in Facebook. And so eventually, instead of the Google Drive, and the Google Drive is great, but Facebook is where everybody is already anyway. And so after you build that Facebook group out, and after the 5 of you are doing this for about, let's say, 3 to 5 to 6 months, you're going to have so much content in there that it's going to be great. And what you can do then is, instead of charging $30 a month, you can charge whatever you want and just increase the price, talk about the content that is in that group and what value it will bring to your audience, and then you can charge whatever you want, because The one thing I'm always told is there's always a club above the club. And so I'm paying 25,000 a year to be in a mastermind, but there's a mastermind that's 100,000 a year. And then there's a mastermind that's a half a million a year. And so there's always a club above the club. And so you're charging $30 a month. There's one out there for $60 a month. And don't be afraid to charge appropriately, because if you want to make this your lifestyle, which I think you do a great job, you're great at interviewing and you're great at bringing people together. And I know your family well, so I know a couple of your cousins too that are the same way. You guys are great networkers and you guys can bring so much value to a lot of people because of that. And it's worth a lot more than you think because you're the one trying to put the price tag on it. And so don't be afraid to charge more. But a good starting rate, or a good where you're starting, is $30 a month. I mean, that's great that you got 5 members, and that's a good starting point.
That's really helpful. And so I want to continue this dialogue just for my own personal selfish benefit, but also just so some of the listeners can kind of hear us talk through this. So as you say that, the first thing that jumps into my mind are limiting beliefs of, and I recognize that they're limiting beliefs, but I'm not quite sure how to combat them at the moment of, well, I've got 5 people paying $30 a month, but if I said maybe it's $100 or $200 a month, my first thought is, well, I would have 0 right now. I'm not sure if people would be willing to go straight there. So that's the first thing that kind of comes into my mind. So is there any thoughts that you have of ways to tackle that limiting belief?
I do. So there's the mastermind we're in, the back room, has different levels in his own tier system. So he has the entry level, which I think is $3,000 a year. And then he has the next level, which is $6,000 a year. And then the next level is the $25,000 a year, which is actually going up to $50,000 to $100,000 a year after this year. And so the different levels that you can have, you can do that. And of course, it sounds like a lot, but you can hire a team around that like he has. And you could have your intro like course / mastermind at the $30 a month, and you can hire a team to run that, and you don't have to be a part of it. You can just kind of put your 2 cents in here and there. And then once they figure out, or once they take the course that's in there, or once they figure out everything that's in there, they can then graduate. And their graduation award is to pay more money and be in your next mastermind. And then after they graduate from that one, they can go to the more money one. And I went through that whole funnel with him, and I'm still in that top level mastermind. And I don't think anything of it. I mean, I don't care about the price of it. I care about the value that I receive. And so you have a great starting point and just figuring out that tiered format. And I recommend going through other people's tiered formats as well. Just I go through funnels all the time because I'm obsessed with making funnels, and I pay a lot of money for those funnels because I just want to see what they're like on the other side. And so you have that kind of structure started, and it's just a matter of taking the time to get it to the next level and figuring out where you want to go from there.
That's fascinating. And so then at the different levels, is the main difference just the quality of individuals and the quality of the feedback and takeaways that you get from those, or is it unique content at each level that's a step up from the last?
Yeah, so it's kind of, he does it as a tiered format. And so what it is if you're a beginner, you're in the first level. And so you're just beginning your physical products business, learning how to find a product and get it selling. That's key level number 1, just find product, get it selling. Level number 2 is, okay, we have products, let's get you to $1 million a year. And it teaches you how to get from that one physical product that you're selling to multiple products, and you're making $1 million a year. Once you get to $1 million a year, you then can graduate to the next level, which is the back room. And that's for anybody that's making $1 million a year or more. And our goal in that mastermind is to get to $10 million within 2 years. And so you may not know what that is for you yet, but it will come. It will naturally come. And you may be in the upper level one right now with the 5 guys you're with. And you may never change the price on them and just start charging $1,000 a month to be in that mastermind. And the new people that are coming in will pay that. And eventually, once that group gets big enough, you may charge $2,000 a month to be in that one. But you just never change how much the initial people paid because they're your beta group and they're helping you figure out everything. So you may be in the lowest tier mastermind right now, or you may be in the highest tier mastermind right now. You just don't know it until you look at the content from an outsider, figuring out how valuable it is.
Wow. Yeah, this whole conversation is just awesome right now. I'm so jacked up kind of about the potential here. Well, I don't want to steal too much of your time, Dr. Zigler, but we certainly need to have a further, more in-depth conversation around this topic. But I appreciate you coming on the show today. I really appreciate your time. People listening don't know, but it's a Saturday morning, and I know that there's a lot that you could be out doing. So thank you very much. And we loved having you here. This was a super beneficial episode for myself personally, and I hope for the listeners as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad you had me back on, and look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Hey guys, thank you again for stopping by today to spend a little bit of time with me and the rest of the Millennial Mafia. Just a reminder, you can find all of today's show notes at millennialmm.com/podcast. And if you haven't heard yet, I'm opening up my calendar to you, the listeners, to hop on a 15-minute call with me. The sole purpose of this call is to connect and get to know each other. I want to forge true relationships with you so that we can build up an amazing network and community of ambitious millennials who are going to be the leaders and influencers of tomorrow. If you're interested, please just go to millennialmm.com/call and snag a 15-minute time slot. I look forward to connecting with you. Peace out.